What's going on, guys? I just want to make a video really quick talking about the build of which I just beat Armored Core with, which is just an absolutely amazing game, by the way. If you haven't got the game, I definitely suggest that you do because it's just really, really good. Now, the game is actually incredibly easy. Maybe this build had a lot to do with it because the entire second half of the game, I think I only died like once or twice because this build is carried super duper hard. But in missions, the arena, PvP, it was just dominant all throughout and was an extremely powerful build. Before I do get started talking about this build, one thing I do want to mention is that you're always better off experimenting and testing out different types of builds. With different types of missions, you're always better off with a specific type of like legs or a specific type of weapons in terms of ranges and whatnot. Certain types of ones will just be better in certain situations. So definitely always experiment over and over again. Don't really limit yourself to one particular build. But with that being said, this build that I'm actually going to share with you guys actually did just carry me throughout the entire game. I didn't really need to change it up. Actually, for the first half of the game, I always tested out a whole bunch of stuff. But once I got to about like chapter 3 and 4, I just stuck with this build and it just worked so well. Now, this build is actually going to involve around using the Fortaleza legs. Now, these are tank legs that are extremely quick. Like, these things are incredible how fast they actually do go, and the boost potential with this thing is just really good. As you can tell, the quick boost thrust is just insanely high. Travel speeds is pretty much maxed out as well, and you do get some decent upward thrust, which is definitely lacking with tank-based builds. It's pretty much like your only downside. You don't really get much vertical lift with this thing, but it pretty much just mitigates that completely, so it's definitely going to be one of the better legs in the entire game. You do get it like roughly halfway through the game, so you're going to have to wait until that point to actually get them. But as for the weapons though, my main weapon of choice is going to be the Gatling gun Huben. Like all types of rapid fire guns in all the Armored Core games, they're always really good. Now you get the Gatling gun, I think a little bit into the playthrough. If before you get this, you could probably end up going with a machine gun because it kind of works just as well. I prefer the Gatling gun because it doesn't actually have any magazines. You have to worry about your hitting stat, but you can just like fire it for longer. You get more ammunition and you get better DPS as well. As for my left hand, I'm going to have the flamethrower Bad Cook. Now this thing, I think you get about halfway through the playthrough as well, but it has very similar range to the machine gun, and you actually just do very nice damage. And you actually have a little like AoE as well, so it can hit multiple enemies at once, get a whole bunch of ammo. But the best part about it is it does have a cool status effect to where it does actually do more stagger damage as well, so you can actually just stagger very quickly, which pretty much what this entire build is actually going to involve around, is just staggering your enemy to just switch to your big boy weapons to just do a bunch of direct hit damage, which pretty much what most Armored Core builds are actually going to involve around. Now, if you didn't have the flamethrower, other weapons you probably could use would just be like another machine gun if you wanted to. You could just go with that, or you could just go with a bazooka or a grenade launcher, anything that does some decent impact damage, which is basically your stagger damage. This detonating bazooka here, the Javelin Alpha, does incredible direct hit damage, so you could probably just go with that as well, if you actually did end up having that as an option. As for your back units, this is where you're going to be doing all of your direct hit damage. Now, your direct hit damage is basically after you stagger your enemy. That bonus damage that you actually do is called direct hit damage, and this direct hit adjustment stat basically scales off that. So this weapon right here, the Stun Needle Launcher, the 60 SNA, does incredible direct hit adjustment, and it's incredibly quick as well. So after you do stagger your enemy, you can just use this gun and it'll just end up doing copious amounts of damage. It's incredible. Now you do get this roughly halfway through the playthrough, so until then you could probably use something like the Songbird's Grenade Cannon. Now actually I'm going to have this on my left back unit. Now the reason as to why we're going to have this one equipped is because it does ridiculously high impact damage. It's just ridiculous. Like basically as soon as you use it, they're just instantly going to get staggered. It's a nice AoE as well. It is pretty quick. Now grenade cannons don't have any tracking, so you have to keep that in mind. So this entire build, you're going to be a tank anyway. You're going to be pretty quick. You just bomb rush enemies, just keep spamming your boost and just keep spamming this gun, and at point blank range you're not going to really miss. It's going to be fine either way. So yeah, if you don't have the Stun Needle Launcher, you can just go with 2 Songbirds, one on either hand, and just keep spamming them. You can get the stagger, and you could probably end up switching to the the detonating bazooka, as I was talking about, and end up getting the direct hit with that. That could work just as well. As for the armor, honestly, it doesn't really matter. Your arms, your core, and your head, they're basically only really meant for like min-maxing your builds and optimizing your builds correctly. Basically, all you gotta do is just have stuff to stay at the correct load. But if I were to go over it anyway, your head, obviously, you're gonna be a tank build, definitely focus on defenses. The rest of these stats here don't really matter as much. Your scan doesn't really matter, honestly. I'd barely even used it throughout my entire playthrough. Your stability actually is probably more important in PvP. In PvE, enemies aren't going to really take advantage of you actually getting staggered, although it is somewhat important, so I don't really recommend going too low into the stat. As for your core, once again, just defenses. Your booster efficiency adjuster could be pretty important with this type of build, because with tanks themselves, you're not going to really have much of an aerial game. So your only way to dodge is just going to be on the ground. Basically, you can't really B-hop or just strafe in the air. So you're going to be spamming dodge a whole bunch. So maybe you should go into a bit of boost efficiency adjuster, because this actually does directly scale off how much energy you do use with your boost itself. As for the arms, honestly, it's the same thing again. Just go into defenses. Recoil control could be somewhat important with a Gatling gun. Your firearm specialization could be decent as well for just hit detection. Your melee specialization, not going to really use anything unless you're using a sword. For whatever reason, if you're ever running out of ammo throughout a certain mission. As for the boosters, nothing. Tanks don't use boosters, which is cool. Your FCS though, honestly, just go with anything that's just balanced, honestly, because you're going to be using all different types of ranges. You could probably focus more on close and medium, because you're going to have a lot of flamethrower and Gatling gun gameplay, whereas your only long range weapon is going to be your needle launcher, to which enemies are going to be staggered anyway, and they're not going to be really moving as much, so you don't really need much of an aim assist. You're not going to be using any missiles, so you don't got to worry about that part. Your generator, honestly, just go into capacity. Anything that has the highest amount of capacity could be your best play. Energy firearms, you're not going to be using any energy weapons, so you don't got to worry about that. As for your post-recovery energy supply, I haven't really done much testing on this, so I don't really know exactly how well it can perform. As for your expansion, I went with pulse armor. Now, either pulse armor or terminal armor work perfectly fine. For PvE, maybe terminal armor could be the correct play, because basically how it works is when you go full to 0 HP, it pretty much just like puts you back at 1 HP, and you get a bunch of iframes as well. So it's kind of similar to how Tears of Denial did work in the Dark Souls games. But Pulse Armor is going to be your best bet, definitely in PvP, because it's pretty much like stops you from getting staggered, and getting staggered in PvP pretty much means like you're just dying instantly. And obviously it does give you that more boosted defenses as well for a period of time. As for the entire tuning itself, definitely go into Boost Kick any single time you're going to have, especially with tank type builds. Boost Kicks is going to be amazing because it does incredible stagger damage, and it's a way to kill smaller mob enemies and save ammo at the exact same time. As for your kinetic and explosive weapons, definitely max that out as well, or get close to maxing it out, because your Gatling gun and your needle launcher is definitely going to do your kinetic damage, and your flamethrower and your grenade launcher is going to be doing your explosive damage. You're not going to have anything for energy weapons, so you don't got to really worry about that. And definitely max out your direct hit modifier, because obviously you're going to go all into direct hits. That's the only way to do meaningful damage in this game, so definitely just max that out, because you're doing 15% more damage. Definitely go all into damage mitigation, because you're just going to have, you go a tank build, so you might as well. You're not going to be like that agile, although with the legs you pretty much are, so you're just going to be tanking all the time. And I also went into repair kits. I just maxed that out. It was 2,000 more health every single time that you did use it, which was handy. Actually did save me a whole bunch throughout my entire playthrough, and it's probably one of the main reasons as to why I just didn't even like die throughout the last 2 chapters. Okay, so I have a quick little arena match to show you guys exactly how this build actually does work. So basically what we're doing is just going to bomb rush our enemy and then just spam our dodge and hold on to L2 and R2 the entire time. And then once you feel like you have an opening, then you use your grenade launcher. And then once you get the stagger, then you switch to your needle launcher. And as you can see, half of his health is literally already gone. And as soon as you get your grenade launcher back, you spam that. And then as soon as you get your what do you call it, your needle launcher back, you can spam that as well. And then you just be perfectly fine. You just keep spamming back and forth. If you end up getting the stagger with the needle launcher, then you're doing fine damage direct hit anyway, because you have that direct hit modifier maxed out. But yeah, basically he's just gonna die straight away. It's just, the entire game just pretty much works exactly like this. Even PvP kind of works like this as well. You just gotta time your grenade launcher correctly, and then you'll be perfectly fine. Anyway, that pretty much concludes it for this one. The rest of the video will just be some more gameplay in both PvE and PvP. As always, please do like and subscribe, and do follow me on Twitch, because I should be live every single day playing this game. I'll be playing it a whole bunch. I literally just streamed like 13 hours today playing this game. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Activating combat mode. I've looked into the enemy craft. It's an autonomous PCA craft, Valteus. You'll have to break its pulse armor to inflict meaningful damage. Pulse armor down. Now's your chance, Raven. Raven, get clear.
2 repair kits remaining.
Enemy systems down. It's silent.